Good morning, everyone. Namaste. I'm going to call in Archangel Michael to cleanse this space, to clear out all negative and lower vibrations from our mind, body, and soul, home, and hearts. Placing the white light of protection around us with this blue seal. We are going to be doing a trigger warning for depression, PTSD, and trauma. So if you're not prepared to deal with that, that's okay. Just go ahead and scroll. We're going to be reading more out of The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. And we're still on Chapter 1, Lessons from a Vietnam Veteran, and we had already went through and learned about trauma of the losses in self and numbing. And if you haven't seen them, you can click on the link below and get that. And now we are on the reorganization of perception. It says, another study I conducted at the VA hospital started out as research about nightmares, but ended up exploring about trauma and changes in people's perception and imagination. Bill, a former medic who had seen heavy action in Vietnam a decade earlier, was the first person enrolled in my nightmare study. After his discharge, he had enrolled in a theology seminar, and he had been assigned to his first parish in a congregational church in Boston suburb. He was doing fine until he and his wife had their first child. Soon after the baby's birth, the wife, a nurse, had gone back to work while he remained at home, working on his weekly sermon and his parish duties and taking care of their newborn. On the very first day he was left alone with the baby, it began to cry, and he found himself suddenly flooded with unbearable images of, I don't want to say this, but little kids passing away in Vietnam. Bill had to call his wife to take over childcare and came to the VA hospital in a panic. He described how he had kept hearing the sounds of babies crying and seeing images. I'm not going to state all that. My medical colleagues thought that he must surely be psychotic, because of the textbooks of the time said the auditory and visual hallucinations were symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia. The same text that provided this diagnosis also supplied a cause. Bill's psychosis was probably triggering by his feelings displaced in his wife's affection for their new baby. So I'm going to leave it there, and I want to talk about that, guys, because I've dealt with PTSD, I've dealt with flashbacks, I've dealt with, again, I used to forensic interview children for child abuse for 5 years. I was on the human trafficking team, and I had secondary post-traumatic stress disorder. I was diagnosed with it due to it, because I would replay the cases in my head. I would replay what the kids said, how it made me feel, all the emotions that would come with it. And it would come about at really whenever somebody would be talking about something, and then I would just all of a sudden start thinking, in vivid detail about the caseload. And it didn't always have to relate to what I was around. So I can understand and empathize with him. So essentially, when we can't deal with trauma, we shove it up into our subconscious, right? We're like, you know what? That's just way too painful for me to deal with. And when he was in Vietnam, he could not fathom and deal with what he was seeing and hearing. So he shoved it up in the subconscious. And when it's coming out and you're getting those vivid flashbacks and you're getting that information, it's triggering you because it's meant to be dealt with, okay? It's not meant to be shoved up into your subconscious and kept forever. So really getting into a great, therapy for extreme, PTSD is going to be helpful for you, because you can talk about those experiences, you can work with someone. Now, the problem I had with the situation, which is so crazy, is I couldn't tell the therapist the things that I had heard, not because of HIPAA or anything like that. I wasn't going to go into detail about names, but because my therapist couldn't handle it. So I had a hard time finding a therapist that could handle it, where the VA kind of specialize in that. I don't know if it's different, but if you cannot find a therapist that can deal with it and you don't feel like it's helpful, to also try to do things like acupuncture, because acupuncture balances your chi, which can decrease your stress so that you can deal with the problem better. Reiki is a full body. It helps to release that trauma that you're holding on to and balance you out and give you that peace that you're looking for so that, again, you can deal with these. Read books on it, go to group therapy where people are talking about those experiences so that you can feel like you can relate and understand. Keep in contact with your war buddies so that they can help you. You can lean on each other, as well as writing a letter to that experience about how that made you feel, reading it out loud, maybe with your wife or your husband, whatever, and then burning it and asking God to step in and help to release that. So either way, the worst thing that you can do is just live with it, get into drugs, drinking, and all that. That's the worst possible situation. That is just trying to dull the pain. That's not going to help the situation. Dealing with it head on is what's going to help to start to alleviate and start to deplete your cup from overflowing so much. So I hope that helps. I love you all. Have a blessed day. Namaste.